console online gaming services. They may have only really found mainstream appeal around the time of the original Xbox and PlayStation 2, but the industry has been trying to get gamers online years before modern services had us talking about each other's mothers in chat lobbies. Many people are familiar with the likes of such services as the Mega Drive Sega channel or the Nintendo N64DD Radnet. But what about the ones that made so little impact they've been totally forgotten by the public? The ones that missed the mark so badly that many people may not have even known they existed in the first place. So this episode, we take a look at these sunken services, these nonchalant networks, and these castaway connections. As I say, but hello you, I'm Guru Larry, and I welcome you to Fact Hunt. 5 online gaming services that failed. Something that seems to have been forgotten over the years is that the Sony PlayStation 1 did have online features. Probably the reason most people don't know this is because the primary way to get a PS1 online was with a special phone connection cable that didn't work outside of Japan. The PlayStation iMode connection lead allowed people to connect their iMode compatible phone to the PS1. What's iMode, I hear you say? Well, it's basically a nerfed version of the internet and email. A collection of websites designed for devices with small screens and even smaller connection speeds. Anyway, the important part, it gave the PS1 an online connection. However, Sony only ever released about 7 games for the PS1 and 1 for the PS2 that actually took advantage of this cable. So you can see it didn't exactly set the world on fire. Then add in the fact that the cable wasn't compatible with phones outside of the land of the rising sun, and you can see why this thing failed, like a Peter Molyneux project. But then we have this, the PlayStation Online Connection CD. This was a prototype internet browser trialled in 3 American schools as a means for students to communicate with each other. As you can see here, it looks fine enough for a 1997 web browser. However, this project never left the initial trial period. The Sega Saturn had an online gaming service, but only 1% of the player base bothered with it. So Sony probably thought people just weren't interested in online gaming yet. I mean, who really wanted to play Wipeout online anyway? Apart from just about everyone. The Nintendo 64 had an online service called Radnet. Everyone knows this already. You take an N64, you add a 64DD, and you end up with the most pointless thing Nintendo ever did, apart from the Virtual Boy. However, this was not the first time that the Nintendo 64 could be taken online. In 1988, a Japanese-only game called Morita Shogi 64 was released for the system. It let the player play a no-thrill shogi game, which is essentially a Japanese version of chess. But this game did have one very special feature. Upon the top of the cartridge was a phone socket, as hidden inside this cartridge was a modem. This allowed the user to play shogi against other owners of the game, thus taking the Nintendo 64 online for the very first time. However, this feature didn't exactly set the world on fire and was never replicated in any other N64 games. More recently though, it turns out that mistakes were made, and that the console hacker C-Turt has found a way to utilise the phone port on the cartridge to make the Nintendo 64 run homebrew software. So not only did Nintendo release an unpopular game, but they've also handed multiple YouTube gaming channels some more Nintendo homebrew content. Bless. thought introducing an online service during the 90s would have been an uphill struggle, then imagine how optimistic a company would have been to try this on the Atari 2600. Control Video Corporation released the GameLine to the American public in 1983 for $60, which equates to about $160 in today's money. The GameLine would plug into the cartridge port of an Atari 2600 and was basically a RAM cartridge crossed with a modem. You'd connect this to your phone line, and then you'd be able to connect to the GameLine online games catalogue. You would pick a game from the list, download it at a cost of $1, but were only able to play the game for a week before it was gone. Then you'd need to pay $1 a game to have it for another week, or just pay for a different game. So this was basically a rental service with a rather large upfront cost in the form of hardware needed. But then on top of this was the $15 membership service fee, and in the list of games that was less than stellar, and you can see why the GameLine wasn't popular. Now, GameLine could have sourced better games for the service, brought down the cost of the unit, and removed the obscene subscription fee, but there is one thing that ruined any chances they may have had, which was completely out of their hands. The North American video game crash of 1983. That's right, the GameLine was launched just as the whole American video games market collapsed, so it never stood a chance. In hindsight, GameLine was a product totally ahead of its time. Unfortunately, its time was the lowest point ever in video games. Well, apart from when the N-Gage launched. Whew. Have you ever looked at your Sega Mega Drive and thought, yeah, this is cool, but I wish I could use this thing as a home online banking system? Of course you've never thought that. No one has. No one, well, apart from Sega. Because in 1990, Sega answered a question nobody asked and released the Mega Anser, a setup for the Mega Drive that turned the console into a home banking system capable of making bank payment transfers, getting loan information, and showing bank account details. I mean, just look at this mess. You throw in a Mega CD and a 32X, and you got yourself an easy way to melt down your local power grid. This was the 90s though. Sega had a fever, and the only prescription was more add-ons. They had chair controllers, Sega branded speakers, and special power adapters so you could actually plug all the crap they were selling in. It's actually genuinely surprising that they drew the line and didn't put out the planned floppy disk drive, keyboard and graphics tablet, but went ahead still and released an online banking system. As you can probably guess, this setup did not sell well at all, and the service was shut down just 1 year after release. But this failure didn't stop Sega from trying to constantly push new add-ons for the system. I mean, seriously though, Sega, an online banking system for the Mega Drive? What were you thinking?
Help!
1997 was the year Sega decided that the future of gaming was online multiplayer. They released the Sega Saturn Netlink. They were designing the online-enabled Sega Dreamcast for release the following year, and also in 1997 they announced Heat.net to the world. Sega's Heat.net was an online gaming network for PC games. A free online PC gaming network that let players duke it out on games like Quake, Age of Empires 2 and Grand Theft Auto. It had chat rooms and other messaging features, but you could also pay for a premium membership which lets you enter online competitions for real prizes and post in their online ranking system. By doing well in the competitions or by viewing adverts on the Heat network, you could earn a currency called degrees. Yes, I see what you did there, Sega. With degrees, you could spend them on hardware, software, or even magazine subscriptions. However, this is where the first problem came up. The system to earn degrees was highly exploitable, because instead of having to go through the trouble of actually winning online games to earn the currency, people found you could just do the same by simply logging into an online game and sitting in the menu screens. By the year 2000, Sega announced they were going to shut the service down. Once again, Sega were just too ahead of its time, and the world didn't need Xbox Live in the year 2000. And by the state of Call of Duty online lobbies, I'm not sure if we need Xbox Live in the present day either. Hello you! Thanks ever so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to be first to see future Fact Hunt episodes. Click on the bell if you already are to make sure you're notified, and be sure to check out my other episodes. And if you want to be super awesome, check out my Patreon. But thanks again for watching, and I'll be seeing you next time. Ta-ra for now!